Hey PC Gamers, and welcome back to the PC Gamer Chat Log. I am Lauren Morton.
And hey everyone, I'm Mollie Taylor.
And this week, Mollie and I are going to be talking to Harvey Randall, our staff writer, about tutorials in games. Because there are some tutorial haters around here. People who skip through tutorials at the earliest possible opportunity.
You couldn't possibly be talking about me. No way you're talking about me.
No, Mollie would never do that. And some of us suffer through tutorials, and sometimes it is suffering. Sometimes we get through a tutorial because you know you're supposed to, but it doesn't feel good. And also there are some tutorials that are good. We'll talk about some good ones as well. But I think everybody has feelings. That's the first thing you do in any game. We have all experienced so many of them that we all have feelings about what works and what just does not work. So we're going to be talking to Harvey about that in a minute. And before we get to that, Mollie, what did you play last week?
Yeah, so I played a little bit more of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which is the Metroidvania from Ubisoft that's coming out, or is out now. I'm not too sure. I think it's maybe in early access and it's coming out like today or something. I was not feeling, I kind of vaguely spoke about it last week, and I was not loving it at the point that I had played it last week. I like it more now, having completed it for the review. I like it more now, so I was going back and mopping up some little bits and bobs, because the movement in it is very nice, and the platforming in it is the puzzles, once you have everything, are very cool. So I've been doing a little bit of that, and because I got my Steam Deck as well, which I spoke about the last couple of weeks, I'm still playing Chants of Sennaar, which is the language-based puzzle game. I'm so close to finishing now. I'm 20 minutes.
Are you in that last area, the real last one?
I'm in the for real last area, doing the
How
last
is it on
little
the deck?
bit. Pardon?
How is it on the deck, on the Steam Deck?
Oh, on the deck, it is. It's really good. It looks gorgeous. It looks so pretty.
Are you using the trackpads to click and move, or does it switch to
It switches to a controller scheme. So when I was playing it on my desktop, I was playing it with a pad anyway, because I tend to just play a lot of my games with a controller these days. So it translates over really well. It feels great on the Steam Deck. Yeah, it's the perfect Steam Deck game. But I'm 20, 30 minutes out from finishing that now. So it's just been the perfect game to spend a little bit of time with, each night before bed. I tackle a puzzle, maybe work out a couple glyphs, and then go to sleep, and then the next night I chip away at it a little bit more, and it's been perfect for that. So
you do have to rest your brain between sessions of that game. When you get stuck, you're clearly my brain is not doing the thing it needs to do, so I need to walk away and come back.
It is pain. One of the last areas is very numbers and maths heavy.
Those are tough puzzles in that one.
Yeah, numbers and maths is not my strong suit. I am really, really bad with numbers. That's why I'm a writer. I feel it's maybe it's just a joke in my circle that people who write are just really bad at maths. And in my case, it
Look,
tracks.
We wouldn't be here doing this if we were good at other things, okay?
Right? Numbers, being good at numbers pays so much more than being good at words.
It sure does.
And I am not good with numbers. So I got tripped up quite a lot on that last area. That really ate up a lot of my game time, was figuring out what the hell to do in that area. But yeah, I'm really close to finishing. I don't know what I'll play next on the Steam Deck. Night in the Woods is on my list right now of games that I want to play, so maybe I'll do that. Maybe. We'll find out next week, because I'll definitely have finished Chants of Sennaar by then. So yeah, that was my week. How about you, Lauren? What did you get up to?
Well, so I told you this already. I was almost gonna make it a surprise, but I bought a Steam Deck.
Yeah!
I had already been thinking about it over break, probably because you had mentioned it. And then you came back and said you got one over break. And I was like, oh no, the FOMO. Because people on Team just keep getting them. Several people have them and have been talking about like how good just like streaming to devices. I think Morgan was talking about streaming to the Steam Deck. And yeah, just all these forces collided, various things. So I went and got myself one of the 512 gig ones, which seemed like plenty of space to fit my cozy games that clock in, easily under 5 gigs a piece usually. So I think I'm going to have plenty of room. And I played in accordance with my goal for the year to play something new to me every week. I played Kinseed, which I had played like a little bit of like years ago, I think when it was still in early access. And I didn't give it enough time, so I went back. It is it's got shades of like Fable, and I think it calls itself inspired by Ultima 7. It's like kind of sandbox RPG-y. It's got it appears to be sort of a farm sim initially, because you do have a farm that you do inherit, and it is a part of a town where you go and meet people and there are stores, and you're eventually like going to have a spouse and like have a legacy and whatever. But it's weird. It's a weird game. Things go sideways after the like tutorial season. Like you spend 10 days and then stuff kind of hits the wall. It's a strange game. It's interesting. It's got some like weirdo, like fairy tale stuff going on in it. But it's fun. I played a lot of that over the long weekend. I think I played like 15 hours maybe of Kinseed.
Wow.
And I'm having a good time. Like a lot of the quests, there's a lot of like procedural, like very repeatable quests. There are lots of things that contribute to a story, but then there are lots of times where you'll go and somebody will be like, I dropped it. I think that's the name of the quest. And it's someone saying, I lost an item. It's in this map zone. Let me know if you see it. And then you have to go find it and give it back to them. Or they say hampered. And what they want is a collection of like foraged items for you to bring to them. So there's a bunch of those quests you'll see a lot of, and I've started like dropping those because I'm like, I've gone and found random missing items, like I'm not going to do that anymore. But otherwise, really interesting, strange, fun game. Spent a lot of time with it. And then I did actually also have like kind of a bad tutorial experience over the weekend. That Traveler's Rest is a game that is still in early access. So
I bought this.
Did you? Have you
played it much of it yet? Sale. I have not touched it yet. It is on my list of games to play. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
So I don't have enough thoughts because I had a bad tutorial experience, unfortunately. It's still in early access. It's a crafting and like tavern sim type thing. And I'm interested. I want to keep trying it, but I will say the tutorial right now it didn't feel good. I was like, just the way the interactions work of like placing an item from your inventory, like, okay, you need to go place the log cutter in the like yard, and the steps that it takes to do that, to like enter decoration mode and then press a button to do this, just something about it feels slightly off. And then the way that the tutorial is presented with pop-ups, which is a thing we're going to talk about with Harvey, something about it just felt wrong. And I was questioning myself, like, am I stupid? Am I just not capable of learning games? And then I picked up Kinseed and I was like, nope, I get this immediately. So it's not me. It's something about the onboarding for that particular game right now. Hopefully it'll improve. Hopefully the rest of the game is interesting. I will push myself through the tutorial to try more of that game, but I did not do that because I was enjoying Kinseed at the time. So sorry to Traveler's Rest, but I will give some more time to that in a little while. So yeah, with that said, I guess on topic, let's go grab Harvey and talk about a lot of other tutorials. Harvey, thanks for coming back to talk with Mollie and I about game tutorials this time.
You're so welcome.
I think we're starting from a position of most of us don't like tutorials, right? Mollie, I know you don't like tutorials. You're like a rebel, right?
I'm a certified tutorial hater. I don't know, I wrote about this a while ago over on our website, pcgamer.com, but I don't know what it is. I think you spend long enough in this hobby and it becomes just such like a frustrating roadblock to like actually getting stuck into the meat of a game. It's a necessary evil. I will concede that it is a necessary evil. It is something that if we did not have tutorials, I would complain that I didn't know what I was doing. But I think it's one of the things that still feels like very outdated in a lot of games. I feel like it's the one thing a lot of developers have never really tried to like make better. I don't know. I think out of everything, tutorials stick out to me as like something that remains quite dated. Yeah.
Harvey, are you a tutorial skipper also?
I am. It depends on how dense the tutorial is. I think in terms of if it's like a full page of pop up text, I'm skipping it. If it's just a few lines, I am. Yeah, I'll stick around for that. I often feel like tutorials are almost like your parents trying to get you to eat vegetables if you're a fussy eater. It's like this really painful process that is necessary. Yeah, it's just like, it's good for you. Here comes the airplane. You need to know what the jump button is. And it's like, I do, but I don't care.
I don't skip tutorials. I bitterly go through them and pay attention. And despite reading a ton for fun, how dare you make me read in a game? If, like Harvey said, if there's like more than a couple lines of text in a pop-up, I feel attacked and I don't want it there, even if there's no better way to explain it to me. And I understand that. It still makes me unhappy. And actually, after we decided to talk about this, I then, like, very shortly after, saw a TikTok of a former contributor of ours who is also a game developer saying, like, of course, we're game developers. Of course, we spent months developing a tutorial that we statistically know you are going to skip at the earliest possible, like, point. And, like, it's true. It is true that we do that. It is true that they know we do that because they have the telemetry data that tells them that we are skipping their tutorials. And there are like lots of then downstream effects of that, of the way that games are designed, knowing that you probably skipped the tutorial and they're going to need to remind you about that thing 5 times because you didn't pay attention to the tutorial, you jerk. So it's, a weird back and forth, the existence of tutorials and trying to get people to not skip them, but also please make them something I don't want to skip. I'm sorry. They are like vegetables. You're right, Harvey. Or Mollie, whichever one of you said vegetables.
Harvey said they're like vegetables.
I was the vegetable king.
I do agree. And like, I don't know. I think it is just a product of like playing games for so long, right? You see a lot of the same shared mechanics across a lot of games, and I think that's where some of the frustration comes from. But like, I wonder, even if you're like a total newbie to video games, if it's like your first ever video game and you're being bombarded with like pop-ups, I wonder how like engaging that is for someone who has never touched a game before in their life. Like, I wonder how helpful that is to them as like a concept, because we've all been playing for a while.
Jargon nested inside of jargon.
Yeah,
defining a word with the definition of another word that you still also don't know. Shout out to Crusader Kings 3.
Strategy games. I mean, I'm not a strategy game player, but the times that I have tried to get into strategy games, the tutorial has just always been unassailable and not explaining enough while simultaneously being too much, which is, I think, comes with the territory.
It does. So there are lots of ways to do tutorials. I mean, we're referencing pop-ups, which is one thing. Like, you can have a pop-up on screen that has text in it. It'll pause your game and it'll make you do a thing. It'll like make you read it and click on a button to show that you are following along with what needs to be done. There are tutorials that just involve on-screen prompts that are like suggesting a thing for you to do by showing the button you should click, and it just sort of waits. There are tutorials that, set you really tiny little challenges, little stairs to step up, like, okay, jump over this thing. Okay, now use your grappling hook. Okay, now do this. What is a good tutorial for the two of you? Like, either a style or like one particular thing that they do that actually makes them good. and not hate them.
I think the toughest thing, right, is that like it's not a one tutorial fits all situation. Like
As Harvey
Cuphead's
says, strategy games like
yeah,
a different
like
beast.
you cannot put Cuphead's tutorial in Crusader Kings. Like
Right.
that is just not that is not something that one could feasibly do, right? But I do really enjoy the kind of like call and response style of tutorial, right? Where it like shows you a thing and it's like, oh, here's this thing that you can do it kind of thing without like interrupting the flow like too much, or kind of where you're in the action and without kind of making you pause and read like a bunch of text. It's just like, oh, try this button, it does this, see what it does to this thing. I like that kind of style where you're still like very actively involved, and I think for me it's my preferred way of learning. I'm very much like I have to do something in order to be able to like register it in my brain. Like for example, if I ask somebody for directions and they say, "Oh, it's just over there, take a left," and then it's like two rights. Like the verbal instructions do not sit in my brain. But if they like take me and like take me left and then the two rights, I will remember like that little pathway forever. Like I will never forget it. And I think that's kind of how it is for me in tutorials as well. If you show me how to do something rather than tell me how to do something, I'm much more likely to take it in, I guess. That's kind of what it is for me.
I am exactly the same in terms of I am also like a kinesthetic learner. I have to like be physically doing the things.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like what a good tutorial is like for me, I think mostly the same. In terms of like object lessons, right? So instead of being like, here's a pop up and press this to jump, you have, I mean, this is the most simple version. I have an example that I might be talking about later, which is Junichiro Ashina from Sekiro, which is, I know a boss that is like 4 hours into the game that I would consider a tutorial. But, in a more simple thing of just like, here's someone jumping across platforms and it just letting you figure it out. But also, I like it when tutorials serve multiple purposes. So, Armored Core 6 actually does this really well in a lot of areas where the tutorial missions will serve the purpose of A, teaching you a mechanic, B, getting you to experience a different mech. Like they give you a different mech for all of the tutorials that's like suited to that tutorial. So you get a good idea of what other parts are available. And you unlock parts. There's like a little carrot on the stick for doing the tutorial. You get your little gold stars. And I as soon as I have some intrinsic immediate reward, I am doing that tutorial, whether I like it or not.
Yeah. Good job, you. Here's
Job.
a sick mech part.
Yeah, here's something to commit war crimes with.
I do think that like we've mentioned the concept like press whatever to jump a few times, and for me personally, as we've identified, like different genres approach tutorials differently because of the ways that you interact with those games, and I do feel like in general, platformers have the space to do tutorials very well that other genres like a strategy game, a city builder, like a 4X game, like they cannot teach you things the same way that a platformer can. So they're just going to feel really like bogging you down, and you just have to be ready for that. But platformers have the ability for sure to like, press this button to do this and to show you examples of things, like different ways to get through a level or ways to approach a challenge. They can very easily just show you a button to press on screen and be like, look, did you see what it did when you pressed that button? And they don't have to like do a lot of explaining. It's more like as like, the call and response type thing. Press this thing, see what happens. Okay, imagine pressing that button with this new thing that I've put in front of you. And then you just learn that way. That's really intrinsic to like platforming tutorials. And those are some of my favorites. I think that like, I can't remember. I feel like maybe Limbo had a decent reputation for its tutorial. There was ages ago I keep wanting to say it's Penny Arcade, and I don't think it was Penny Arcade. There was, when I was still in school and in classes for game design, there was one particular video about tutorials that was like the thing that people passed around, like talking about like side scrolling games and teaching people things and like built-in assumptions and all that. And I wish I could remember whose video this was, but that's what it makes me think of. And I do like platforming ones. Do either of you guys have like a recent example of a tutorial that you actually didn't skip and actually did enjoy? Like, so for Harvey, it was maybe the Sekiro one. I don't know if you have a different one.
Yeah, the Sekiro one is a very esoteric example that I'll get into once we sort of swing around to it. But the recently, I don't know. Mostly because, I mean, the game I've been playing the most of recently all have bad tutorials. Like World of Warcraft is I've been playing like World of Warcraft and Baldur's Gate 3, and Baldur's Gate 3's tutorial is not bad, but it's also a very complex CRPG where you're meant to kind of go onto a wiki sometimes and just look something up. World of Warcraft has an infamously bad new player experience. So I think the only example, and it's not a recent one, but I do really like how Final Fantasy XIV, especially with the revamp of the earlier dungeons that they've been doing during Endwalker, very slowly introduces players to like different dungeon mechanics and builds up a vocabulary over the course of like, 4 or 5 expansions of like, this means this. It's like the world's most complicated version of Simon Says, basically. And you get to the point where you're in endgame and like, yeah, you still get like absolutely, whacked out players doing absolutely wild stuff. But you also, for an MMO, it's super rare to just hop into like a late game activity and have most people know what they're doing. Like it's quite rare in Final Fantasy XIV that you just have a player that has no clue what's going on. And I think that's a testament to how that game structures, like sprinkles these sort of like little lessons throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree with that actually. I think the new player experience in that game is definitely better than it used to be. I think that's because, especially back when like A Realm Reborn was a thing, there was a lot more complexity to the system, I would say, with like cross-class skills and all that kind of like the having to level up 2 classes to get a job kind of thing. Like it was a lot more complicated back when I first started playing. I think they have streamlined that experience quite a lot now. And I do think it's a lot better. I've had like friends that have gotten into it recently, and even if they don't know rotations, even if they're just kind of pressing buttons, they still have a pretty good idea of like mechanics and stuff, right? And how to avoid those. So I do think that's really good. I would say for me, a recent example, I will say Prince of Persia, The Lost Crowns tutorial was very unintrusive, like in a way that I really liked. It was, it throws you straight into combat, so you're immediately like learning how to attack, how to parry, how to dodge, and then obviously with that you're platforming as well. So I found it very, very unintrusive, very just intuitive straight away. Again, the platforming buff, the platform blessing, is that they can kind of do that, right? But one recently that I did really, really like, and I spoke about this game last week because I've been playing it because of you, Lauren. Chance of Sanaa does, I think, a fantastic job of telling you what the entire premise of the game is very, very quickly. To be fair, it's quite a simple premise. So for those who don't know, Chance of Sanaa, it's a language-based puzzle game where you have to translate different glyphs and figure out what they mean. And that, like the opening, like 10 minutes, I would say, it's very brief. It's like a lever, right? It's just a lever. There's one glyph at the top, one glyph at the bottom, and there's a door. And the lever controls the door. So like immediately you know that like one glyph is like open, one glyph is closed. And then, you do the thing and it opens a little book with the diagrams and you slot them in and that's the game. Mm-hmm. And I think it does like a really nice job of just with like very little words. I don't think there's a lot of like actual pop-up screens. I think there's a little one maybe where it says like you can make notes about what you think it is.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but I think it tells you very well how to play that game just by using like what's in the game itself. I think. And I really liked that. Like immediately, as soon as I figured out what to do, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I was like immediately hooked. So I think it does a really good job personally.
Yeah, I think that's important, is what you're describing, like reducing your potential inputs in a situation, like really paring down the options that you have in front of you and having a game that's like, okay, there are only 2 buttons. Behold, attempt, see what happens. And in that game, because the level of interaction in that game is like pretty small, there's only so many things that you actually do. You click to walk, you mouse over things to see what they mean, and once you figure them out, so it's very like, okay, lever, try the lever, see what happens. And it feels really good because you're like, oh, okay, I do understand, like, thank you, I get it. I think the most recent one for me that I actually really loved, and it's not just because of the tutorial, it's sort of the whole intro segment as like a package, is Planet of Lana. Came out last year, and I only tried it towards the end of the year. It's like comes from the Limbo and Inside school of like side scroll platformers where small children are in very perilous situations and creepy things want to kill them. Very good game generally, but its tutorial is a side scroll to the left type affair. And it's like showing you, okay, this is how you jump. This is how you duck to crawl under something. This is how you grab a thing and pull the like wooden board off so you can get through. This is how you hold on to a rope. And it just makes you do all of those things in order as you're chasing along behind your like older sibling, I think. And it's like just generally great because it's a very pretty world. It has a great soundtrack that's all happening. So just like the whole experience like comes together very nicely. And they're like, oh, I just feel great. I'm just like following along behind them. It feels like you're prancing your way through this whole intro tutorial segment and you just feel so good. And the other one, like a more classic example, I think Journey does a really good job. It's one of the ones where you're just in the desert, no context, and on screen you see the controller and you see like it showing you which button to press to like stand up and walk around, and you're like, well, that's it. And then also you fly eventually, and like that's Journey. You'll figure it out. So definitely tutorials where you can be shown things and not told anything at all.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier, like you say, with games like platformers and maybe puzzlers and like other indies that play with sort of not simple concepts, but more like condensed concepts, I guess. I think JRPGs definitely, when we're like talking about JRPGs and strategies, they are the ones that do. I don't know how they deal with that information overload, because it is something that almost every JRPG I've played like suffers with, is just intense information overload. I'm trying to think what like Persona 5's tutorial was like, because I can't remember if it was good or bad.
My experience with JRPGs, and this is like a sort of small thing that I absolutely I like a lot of them, but I'm thinking about the kinds of tutorials that I don't like, and I hate it when a game gives you like an opening segment that's like a little taste of the gameplay and then puts you in a town or a hub for like 2 to 3 hours. It kills my motivation like dead. And JRPGs and generally speaking, RPGs in general pull that a lot. Like, I mean, it's almost obviously Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have like done away with that, but it's something Zelda games were used to be kind of famous for. Just like, and now here's the town section where you go around and talk to NPCs and do nothing related to adventuring for a while.
The original Baldur's Gate, kill rats in a dungeon. Tales of Symphonia, enjoy your tiny little village. I do.
I will defend rats in a dungeon. I do like killing a rat in a dungeon.
No,
I do. It feels so cozy. It feels so cozy to just be like, here's a dungeon, here's a rat, you have a sword, go to town. I do like that kind of opening.
I think the original Nier did it as well. I think it like throws you straight into a boss battle, because I think the beginning of Nier, the original Nier, occurs like maybe halfway through the game, if I remember correctly. So it like throws you into a boss battle with these characters that you don't know. And then you like do that boss battle, you have all these abilities and stuff. And then it's like, oh, you're, well, in Europe and America at the time, it was you were like the dad. They changed that when they re released it. But it's like, oh, your daughter's sick, go run all these errands in this little village that you both live in. And it's like, oh. So, well, this is a little bit of a change. Yeah, that's definitely a particular flavor of JRPG that I think sometimes works well, but I think it's definitely one of the worst ones in how it does like a tutorial, right?
Can either of you come up with an example of a strategy game or an RPG or something that has a high text tutorial that you don't hate? Like, is there a version of lots of text tutorial that you don't resent? I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I can't think of one either. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of, I haven't played a JRPG like newly for quite a while either. So I'm trying to think of like tutorials that I don't hate. That's why I was trying to think of Persona 5, because I don't remember how like good Persona 5's tutorial is. I think it's a little on the slow side from what I can remember. But because that game again throws you in like halfway through the story and has you like with a persona. I think that immediately teaches you like the weakness system. I don't remember actually, but I don't remember hating that, but I am a Persona stan, so maybe that helped.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, I mean, it does kind of fall into the same and now you're in a town for 3 hours trap that I just said I don't like. But I played Final Fantasy 11. No. Oh God, what's the one with
Steampunk one?
Yeah,
12?
the one with Balthier and Fran.
12.
12, yeah.
12. There we go. Because I was like, no, 11's the MMO. But I played 12 recently, and I don't like the section in the city where you're Vaughn and you're running around and you're having to learn about bounties and hunts and everything. But
you
I
kill
do
rats
like
in the sewers.
You do kill rats in the sewers. When you get to the rat killing in the sewers, I'm in. I'm fine with that. That's fine. But then it devolves into town running around. But I do like the segment before that where, and it's not necessarily because the text is delivered in a super interesting way. It's just that the actual segment is interesting enough to like keep my attention. With the whole, you're this young soldier caught in the middle of the war. Balthier and Fran show up, I think, which is probably why I like it, because they're both very pretty.
Yeah.
And there's enough kind of going on that you don't necessarily feel like, oh, this is super boring, right? It starts you in with a sort of side character that's tangentially related to the story, sort of in media res, doing something interesting to kind of make up for that. I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 kind of does that as well, right? Like that's a bit of a text heavy tutorial kind of deal. There's a few object lessons in there. You are encouraged to fuck around and find out, but you are in an interesting situation immediately. So I think that's probably what I would categorize a text-heavy tutorial has to be, is everything around the text that it just needs to be interesting.
Yeah. That's a really good point, actually.
You need to be in the middle of it.
Yeah, you have to be like invested enough in what is currently going on, I think, to care about it being so text heavy. I think that's a big reason why a lot of people don't like Final Fantasy 13. I am a lover of Final Fantasy 13. I will defend that game. I have been a Final Fantasy 13 enjoyer since day one. A lot more people are coming around to it now than they were like 10, 13 years ago. But I will say that game is very pop-up text tutorial heavy. In very uninteresting situations, especially at the beginning. And then it goes on for like another 9 chapters. Like I think there's 13 or 14 chapters in that game. And the first 9 of them are basically very hand-holdy. Look at this stuff, do this thing. And I kind of get why people don't fuck with that. Like, I did. I shouldn't have, for how much I hate that kind of thing, but I definitely understand why people feel quite strongly against that game because of that.
I think presentation is such a huge part of it as well, though, in terms of like how is it holding your hand? Because I had this thought when I was like putting notes together for this, and that one of my biggest hates is in a tutorial when the game stops certain buttons working until the prompt comes up to press them. I hate that because it's like, oh, I've gotten used to this. However, the way Metroidvanias work is that's the entire concept, is that those buttons are withheld from you until you reach a certain point and you unlock powers. But it's just the Metroidvanias are almost like one long tutorial where you don't have your full kit of powers until the end of the game. And I love that. I love getting a new power and suddenly being able to go through all these different doors or whatever. So it really is just like the Pavlovian way in which my little treats are handed out to me as I'm scurrying around in a cage are super important to whether or not I sort of learn.
Yeah. I feel like the only thing that I dislike even more than a pop-up that pauses the entire game and makes me read it is a mascot character that's telling me all of the things I need to know in the tutorial. Molly, I'm sorry, I hate it. I hate
Persona is real guilty of that.
How dare. And I think Genshin did this. Like, does Paimon teach you stuff? I'm pretty sure Paimon teaches you stuff. I don't remember, but
that bitch is always there.
If glorified Clippy shows up and is like, press this button to make this happen, I'm leaving. And I'm not coming back.
Yeah. You know what? Now you've said that, you have reminded me that is basically what Persona does. Like, especially Persona 5, because it introduces... Actually, 4 does it as well. Because Teddy in Persona 4 and then Morgana in Persona 5, they're both kind of like now you should do this. And it's like, oh my god.
You just got 5 Bleeblobs. Here is where your Bleeblobs are stored. This is what they do. Try using 3 Bleeblobs now.
Yep. And like, they posit it as kind of them coming from like a more experienced like seniority of like having the expertise of like, oh, I know how to do this. And now I'm going to tell you how to do it because you've just been thrust into this crazy little world. But like, I don't know. I kind of agree. The way it's delivered is a bit like...
Is there any tutorial like for a specific game that basically just like put you off the entire game?
Ooh. Harvey, do you have one?
So this is a nice opportunity for me to complain about, and I don't mind them anymore because I'm used to Souls games. I think this is something that I think they kind of stopped doing it with Elden Ring, but I don't think most, like, the whole From Software gambit of here's like a little thing, you kill a few skeletons, you go around, and then a boss kills you and is designed to kill you. I think that sucks. Oh, no, actually, no, Elden Ring did it as well. Actually, there's the many-armed thing that kind of comes and just like flattens you. I always thought that whole experience, it never dissuaded me, but it teaches people all the wrong lessons about the game that they're trying to do. Like the immediate segment after that, where you're given like this crappy little boss with a health bar or whatever that you're able to be a bit aggressive with, that's great in Elden Ring. But those games also do a better sort of job sprinkling through various walls that demand you know certain mechanics. And this is where I'm going to talk about Junichiro, who is a boss in Sekiro that you fight, I want to say like 3 to 4 hours into the game. And he is at the top of like Ashina Castle. It's this big climactic fight. And he's often the point where a lot of players kind of bounce off the game because I think he's great, but he, as a boss fight, is like, right, there is a specific way that you need to play this game. If you haven't figured that out by this point, you are figuring it out now, or you are stopping. Like you gotta stop dodge rolling and you gotta start parrying, my dude. Otherwise, you're not gonna have fun. You gotta stay aggressive with me, and it's almost
listen here, kiddo.
Yeah, it's. But I love that. But like in general, From Software's whole like here's a boss that flattens you always annoys me. It never. Even becoming self-aware of like, okay, this is what they're doing. I don't think it imparts any valuable lessons. I don't think it does anything.
And yet the parts that come before that, Harvey, are always the exact kind of like, okay, try this button, now try this type of attack, try a light attack, try a heavy attack, try chaining these certain things together, is the kind of tutorial that I do like.
It's true.
But then, yeah, you get to the boss segment, and I think part of what I think it's trying to teach you to be cautious, because that's part of how those games are made. But I think it can teach some people to be incurious, which is dangerous, because you do need to want to explore and find things and try stuff and not be afraid of every single hallway. Just, like most of them.
Yeah, for sure. It's also like, you should be scared of big boss enemies. And it's like, well, a lot of bosses in Dark Souls games, like, they're not that scary once you figure out what iframes are.
The small bosses are the scary ones. Big bosses are not scary. It's the small guys that'll really toss you around in Dark Souls. If they are human-sized, you're done. You're done.
Yeah. Walk into a room, there's a dude in armor, you're fucked.
I find that concept of like tutorials teaching people the wrong things really interesting, because I think one of the XCOMs, like, I think is a lot of people complain that the tutorial for that game teaches like very bad and incorrect tactics. I have not played an XCOM game myself. I cannot vouch for this. This is something that I found across my research was like a bit of a complaint, was that people do not like the way that XCOM teaches you how to XCOM. And I find that quite interesting.
Yeah, is this I'm trying to rattle my memory, because I have played the more recent like XCOM 1 and 2, and I'm trying to think about what that tutorial was like.
Yeah, I'm not an XCOMer. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm not an XCOM player. I'm not an XCOMer. It's not something that I have ever like messed with, but I do find that really interesting. It's like, what about when games maybe like don't teach you incorrectly, but they teach you like inefficiently? Maybe
Hi-Fi Rush teaches you extremely inefficiently, because I remember and I love that game, but you don't, and this is maybe me being like parry biased, because I love a good parry, but unless my memory is completely failing me, I don't think you unlock the parry until you fight the guy who's doing all the JoJo poses. I think you go into his little test chamber and then you get the parry tutorial, and that's like, I think 2 to 3 entire missions into the game. So you've already spent all of this time getting used to not having a parry available, and then suddenly the game's like, okay, now layer parrying on top of your usual playstyle. It's like, come on.
You've already started developing the muscle memory and how you want to approach fights. And they're like, by the way, like,
exactly.
It's too late.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Harvey.
No, please.
I was going to go back to Elden Ring, because speaking of tutorials that don't like either teach you the wrong things or allow you to skip them on accident. Remember when Elden Ring launched and everybody skipped the tutorial and didn't mean to, because you walk into this cave and on one side is a door, a big door up a little set of stairs, and it's well lit. And on this side there's a hole. And everything you've ever heard about Dark Souls, fortunately, I was already well versed in Dark Souls. Even if I knew the tutorial was there, probably would have skipped it. But like, I didn't go down there. Actually, big hole in the ground. Are you kidding me? I know what happens. Like, there's blood stains on the side of it. Like, that's people having a little hee hee ha ha, jump down in the hole and die. Welcome to Dark Souls, you silly fool. That was the tutorial. You were supposed to jump down there, and the tutorial was in a cave down there. And they later did an update making it more clear that if you want a tutorial, you should jump down the hole. It's okay. We're sorry we made it look so scary. But like, wow, what a wrong lesson to walk into that room. And like, it's very like obvious and understandable why everybody did the wrong thing at that point. Of course you're not going to jump in the hole.
One of the oh, sorry, you go.
No, I was just gonna say, even as someone who does not play Dark Souls, I would avoid the hole. Everything I've ever learned in any game teaches me don't jump down a big hole unless you want to get your ass kicked. Like, that is the rule of video games. You jump down a hole, you're getting your ass beat. Like, I wouldn't do that.
This is like the new, what is it, like ENFTP personality type kind of
Did
thing.
Did you jump down the hole in Elden Ring or not?
Are you a hole jumper or a door person?
I know my big three. I'm a Pisces non-hole jumper. I'm a Pisces door opener. Thank you.
I'm a Gemini hole jumper. I remember I played Outer Wilds with a friend recently, and you know that one planet in that has all the storms and the tornadoes and stuff? That was something that they had avoided forever. And one of my first things was like, I'm going to fly into the sea planet. I know death has no consequence. I'm just going to go straight into the scary thing to demystify it for myself. But yeah, I had a similar, one of the criminal things that I think Baldur's Gate 3 does wrong is it never forces you to make a potion as part of its tutorial. And it should. Because I did my entire first playthrough, because I can't stand crafting systems in games. I became an Omnicrafter in FF14 out of sheer spite. But I always kind of leave them alone or whatever. I was playing on normal difficulty. So when the subject of making potions and stuff came up, I just kind of ignored it. It is so easy to make potions in Baldur's Gate 3. You only have to do 3 things. You just pick stuff up, which you're doing anyway. Pick up all the plants you see, whatever. Press H. You click extract all ingredients, and then you just have a menu of potions you can make from the stuff in your inventory. It is the most straightforward thing. I did my first full 100-hour playthrough while never touching it, and then only when I started doing honor mode was I was like, this is the most helpful and straightforward system I have ever experienced in a game that only gives me good things.
I would never make a potion in Baldur's Gate 3 either. I never make potions in The Witcher if I can help it. I know if you do harder difficulties, it's kind of necessary, but I refuse.
It's so easy.
That might be a whole other episode conversation, is why you will never touch the crafting system in games that aren't crafting games.
We've sort of talked about this before, right? We did
drag in Chris to talk about crafting being in every game, yeah.
And I am the same as you, Harvey. I will not really touch crafting in a game like Baldur's Gate. If it is a game where crafting is not the entire premise, I generally will not craft, right? That is just something that I don't mess with. Why would I craft something when I can buy it in a store? But so I had no idea.
Next time you play, just press H, click that extract all ingredients button, and it just does everything. It's super super easy. Yeah,
that's actually wild.
But yeah, it's just if a game that's the thing, right? Is that we all hate pop-ups, we all hate little tutorials, we all hate being forced to do things, but sometimes we do just completely not engage with entire sections of a game because of just stubbornness.
Yeah. That's the exact kind of thing that I end up doing though. You've just told me that, Harvey. That is how I engage in my games. I skip the tutorials and I wait for someone to tell me how to do the thing, because I'm why would I read an entire pop-up box when my friend who already has 100 hours in this game can just give me the TLDR? That is how I play so many of my games.
As for things that I'm thinking about strategy games again, because I did actually pick up last week Pioneers of Pagonia, which is another city builder that came out late last year, and I've not earnestly tried it. I have downloaded it, I turned it on, and then what happened is, and important to note, Pioneers of Pagonia is in early access, so yeah, I am not judging it too harshly.
No shade.
Not either. No shade, no shame. But what happens when you turn on that game is you're looking at a boat, and there's an island in front of you, and you kind of have to mouse over the boat in order to put your mouse anywhere on the screen, and it says not connected to a road, and you're okay. And it does not tell you anything. It does not give you any pop-ups. There's no, oh, yay, great, it's going to let me learn, except this is a city builder. And I know how to play city builders, but I'm okay, so I got to turn the camera. I got to look at this gangplank that ends on the island. Okay, which one of these buttons at the bottom is a road? Okay, you mouse over it. I found the one for roads. I guess I click here. And then I click there. Wait, how do I make the road stop going? Oh, I have to click on the end point of the road to make the road end. Now what? Hello? What do I do? And like up in the corner with no flashing, no nothing, no pop-up, no taking control of your screen is like these little goals. It's like build a lumbering hut, build a little house for your people, which like I know I was going to do that, and I do eventually figure it out. But without the flashing or the removing control from me or forcing me to press the button or anything else, I was like, hello? What am I like, what am I doing here? And by trial and error and like plenty of experience with city builders, I would have figured out, yeah, okay, the first thing I do is put down a house, and the second thing I do is put down a wooden cutting hut and then a stone masonry thing, and the little people will come out of the boat and they'll start doing the stuff, and they'll be gathering resources, and they'll be up here, and then I'll make other stuff. But I was like, I felt so just like thrown off into the deep end. I was like, I know how to play these games, but don't you want to tell me anything at all? Don't you tell me anything at all?
Where's my Clippy? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Bring me your stupid mascot and have him tell me how to play the game.
What I would respect is if a game had a mascot that you could turn off, but if you turned it back on, it would like be like, look who came crawling back. You think you didn't need my help, but you did.
Is Undertale's tutorial not like this? Does Undertale have a tutorial? That strikes me as Toby Fox all the way down.
It's a character called Tutorial.
Oh yeah.
Toriel. That's right.
Yeah. And she literally holds your hand and like walks you. I forgot how like good and very tongue-in-cheek Undertale's tutorial is. I do really, really love Undertale's tutorial. Thank you for reminding me. I totally forgot about that. I think that entire game is just taking what is a game and putting like a very tongue-in-cheek twist on it, right? But yeah, tutorial is great. The fact that she literally holds your hand to walk you from like destination to destination, very funny.
I always get a little sad whenever, and I know, like, you know, FF12 its tutorial is this, but whenever a game is like, here's the tutorial, and here's Dragon Age Origins did this actually, where the whole first segment is like, here's some characters to get attached to, they're all dead now. Like that's the border between the tutorial and the main game is all of the people that you were like kind of like starting to jive with just like suddenly getting like dead, or you know, Duncan's just like, well, time to start killing you all. Goodbye.
Now that you say that, Harvey, because earlier in this conversation, somebody said something and I started thinking about Dragon Age 2's tutorial. And now I'm thinking about Dragon Age 3. Hold on. Look, I'm a Dragon Age fan, like pivotal series for me. But every single one of those like tutorial sections, like the actual like pop-up tutorial stuff is shorter, but the like, this is the starter area of the game is much longer than the like very literal tutorial elements. Yeah. Like, the first part of Dragon Age Origin, here's a bunch of characters. Some of them will make cameos later, but most of them are dead, especially if you're a human noble. Sorry. Dragon Age 2 is, here, have a bunch of high-level abilities and fight, like, a dragon or something. Haha, just kidding. Now you're level 1.
Oh, that's the worst. That's the worst.
And then Dragon Age Inquisition, notoriously, the whole hinterlands, the first area of the game, most people didn't leave for a very long time because they didn't know they could, and they got stuck, and they didn't like think about using the like war table or whatever you were supposed to do to like unlock new areas or whatever. Anyway, Dragon Age, what? Hello, why are your tutorial areas so like bad in different new ways every single time? They're all different bad.
Well, of course you had. Actually, no. Hold on. Dragon Age Origins does that twice in a row, because you have your origin story where you get attached to a bunch of people and everyone dies, and then you have the opening section
Lothering where everybody dies.
Yeah, and it's. I still remember that one time where I think you were all about. You were all about to drink the dragon blood, and then like one of the guys is like, I don't want to do this anymore, and Duncan's just like, come here. He just murders him because he's like, well, you know our secret, and you know, you showed doubt for 0.5 of a second, I'm gonna gut you.
Don't worry, we weren't using these characters anyway. Get out of here, get off my board.
Get out of here.
Oh man. Is there a tutorial that a lot of people don't like that you really do like, because a tutorial that I did not realize was not very well liked is Nier Automata's tutorial. I've spoken about the first Nier, but Automata, maybe it's my rose tinted glasses. I haven't played this game since like the summer of 2018. It's been a long time, but I remember like really, really enjoying that tutorial. It's very much like a trial by fire. Like, it throws you through all the different perspectives that you'll encounter in the game, like the 2D perspective, like the standard 3D perspective, and like the top down like flight perspective. It puts you through all of them. It like basically tells you all of the fundamentals of that game. And I really, really like it. And then I was researching it a couple months back when I was writing my feature, and everyone was like, yeah, it's like way too long. It's way too hard. Like, it really sucks. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, man, people don't like this. But I really liked it. That was one that really sticks out to me as like a good way of kind of being like, this is what the game's going to be like. Enjoy.
I don't know if I have an example of that, of a tutorial that I'm sure I do, but I haven't thought about it. Tutorials that people don't like, other people don't like. I don't know.
I think for me, and I think it's pure nostalgia, I don't think it's actually good, but the prison sequence in Oblivion is iconic. Mm-hmm. It's you know, we all have opinions about Starfield, but that Oblivion sequence is like Bethesda at their most pure distilled Bethesda of just like, you're in a prison, there's some arsehole that you get to come around and kill later if you go to the Assassin Quest line. Here's the highest paid voice actor that we could get to deliver 20 lines of dialogue telling you you're the chosen one. You're like going through like a series of dungeons, and then he gets assassinated and Patrick Stewart's gone forever. And then it's so like that opening, I love it. Objectively, it's bad because whenever you make a new character, you just have to sit through it, and it's long and it's lengthy, and you have to wait for conversations to finish and doors to open, and like, you know that this crappy little assassin is gonna like pop out of here, and even if you go into console commands, like, you can't change anything about anything that happens in that
Sir
tutorial.
Patrick.
You can't save the Emperor because then the rest of the story doesn't happen. But just that whole thing of just like. and it's so funny as well because literally you're just sat there in your prison cell, and then the emperor of the kingdom you're in and his personal guard are like, hey, sorry we put you here, but our secret passageway goes through your cell. And the emperor looks at you, he's like, let me see your face, you are the one from my dreams. And it's like, okay. But yeah, that's my favorite tutorial section that I also think is objectively bad, but I would love playing that any day.
Also, Lauren, how many times has the prison sequence in Oblivion come up in this podcast now? It comes up. I feel like this is like the third or the fourth time somebody has spoken about the prison sequence in Oblivion. I swear Ted has also spoken about it.
Yeah. I mean, yes, probably.
Yeah, a very Ted-ass opening for a video game. Yeah, I feel like that prison opening comes up a lot on this podcast. It's terrifying.
Sorry, you go.
No, go ahead, Harvey.
I was going to say, contrasting that with Fallout 3's opening, which I think sucks. I know it's controversial. I think it's controversial. So bad. I liked it the first time around, but it's
well, yeah, it's exhausting now after you know what happens.
But at least in the Oblivion one, you're still kind of doing stuff. You're still kind of going through a dungeon, and like, you know, there's monsters that you're independently fighting in between all of the thing. The Fallout 3 one is just a gauntlet of like scripted scenes that takes a while to get through.
You have to walk to everything, and then you have to pick up the BB gun, and you have to shoot the rad roach, and then you have to go to your stupid birthday party. Yeah, it is long, that's for sure. So what we've learned today, it feels like, is that platformers have great tutorials, and everybody else should learn from them, even if you're not a platformer and that makes no sense at all. Just think about it. What could you learn from tutorials for platformers?
Put a double jump in your strategy game. It's fine.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Just think about it.
Just think about it.
Just try. What does a double jump in a city builder mean? I don't know. Work on it. Teach me how to place new units the same way the platformer would teach me how to use a ledge climb. Thanks.
Imagine a real-time strategy game where every time you had to do a fight, you had to play a level of Cuphead. And that was the conceit.
Oh my god.
Rude. Hate it here. Well, thank you guys both for discussing the good and the bad of game tutorials. I feel like we've solved nothing but made ourselves known. You know,
yes,
we're just off throwing some ideas into the old stew, right? Beautiful. Well, thank you for joining us on the chat log this week. Obviously, you can read more news, reviews, opinions, guides from everybody on the team, including Harvey at pcgamer.com. And you can discuss this week's episode with us on forums.pcgamer.com. Thanks, Harvey, for being here with Mollie and I. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.